My name is Noel Leader, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here with my three co-hosts. First of all, everybody's here. Julian Harper.
Welcome, welcome.
Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And the great Father Lucas.
Hotep.
And we'd like to welcome you, our viewing audience, once again to another edition of Community Cop, where truth and real talk occurs. As we all know, today is election day, so we have a whole lot to discuss as it relates to electoral politics in this city, in this country, as it reflects or relates to the African American community. But as we always do, we like to reflect on a great figure in our history. Michael informed us that November 9th, 1731 was the birth date of one of our greats, self-taught Benjamin Banneker, who was a scientist, a surveyor. He had an almanac author. He was a farmer. He was he built his own clock, and this is an individual who was self-taught, showed the genius of members of our community. But Michael, before we start our discussions on a variety of topics, why don't you remind us of this great individual that we should all remember, Benjamin Banneker.
Well, Benjamin Banneker was one of the greatest scholars that America has ever produced, certainly when one considers that, as Noel pointed out, he was self-taught. He spent a little bit of time in school, just a short period of time where the basic ABCs were learned, and that was about it. He had to work for his family. His family was, his mother was free, and his father was a formerly enslaved African directly from Africa, and he was able to not only impact America with his scholarship, but also he was such a great scientist, as Noel pointed out. He looked at one clock, one metal clock once. He looked at a watch. He looked at a watch one time and was able to just look at it, and he went into his own shop and made a wooden clock from scratch, all wood, that to this very day works. So that clock is going on 300 years old, and it's still working to this very day. No metal in it, all wood, and it's to the hour precise. It's amazing, and he was able to do that just by looking at one watch, the inside of one watch. Not only that, he was a surveyor. He was the one who inherited the difficult task when whites were unable to determine the parameters of what would be Washington, D.C., because it had to be done 10 miles by 10 miles by 10 miles by another 10 miles, so it would be evenly, so it would not it'll affect all surrounding states. He was able to do that basically by the stars. He was also an astronomer of all his other gifts. He was also an astronomer and was able to lay it out. So we should never forget just the greatness of how Benjamin Banneker, how great he truly was.
I like the emphasis on the fact that he was self-taught. It reminds me of Anton Diop and John Henry Clark, two folks who became some of, as you said, the greatest scholars.
Mm-hmm. And since you mentioned Dr. Clark, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Dr. Clark always pointed out that in Dr. Benjamin Banneker, and I'm saying doctor because he really was, Benjamin Banneker's bloodline, he was from the Dogon people. And being from the Dogon, he had mastery of the stars and the planets, the sun, and that's why he was able to build what Noel said, an almanac. He had a solar, he was able to tell people about the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, and all those types of things, and no one knew how he came to that determination and where he developed the mathematical skills to do things and make those calculations. But as Dr. Clark pointed out, he had a bloodline that goes back to the Dogon, and these were the people that knew where the dead star, the dark star, Sirius, and all that was. So we should never forget just how great Benjamin Banneker really was.
Okay, and he was a progressive politician. He had a lot of conversations with Thomas Jeffersons and the likes as it relates to black suffering and racism and discrimination and human rights. So as Michael said, big ups to Benjamin Banneker, November 9th, 1731. We've talked about 1731. So As we proceed to talk about Election Day, this is one of Julian's favorite days. You know, normally he likes to parade around in the Harlem community in red, white, and blue because he realized the importance and the significance of, you know, democracy. You know, and everyone knows that United States and in New York, we definitely have a democracy. No, seriously speaking, in a city where we're really suffering under minority rule, where Black, Latino, and Asians represent the majority of the city, but yet, you know, we continue to be so powerless. What are your feelings about elections, Jay Julian? We'll start with you. We have a governor's race. We have numerous local races. We have national races where Republicans are attempted to gain some leverage and take two of the three powerful committees in the country. Of course, by taking them both, they're hoping to win the presidency in a couple of years. Your overall view of local politics first. We'll start local because Julian always reminds us that politics should begin being local. What do you see here in New York City?
Well, one of the things I do see is that there's become a lot of apathy when it comes to the electoral process in this city. I think a lot of our people are discontented. They don't believe in the system. I think they believe that it's failing them. And I understand because the way politics are structured, we really don't have a choice. We're given two candidates to choose from, and for the most part, they're not really looking to do the will of the people, at least structured the way it is and the people that we have to choose from. And I think it's unfortunate that we don't understand that we have to build from the ground up when we start talking about who we want to represent us. We have to develop our own elected officials from the ground up and groom them to be what we need them to be to ensure that they're going to work from a position that's going to benefit our community. When we allow the machine to decide who we're going to elect, we always end up with someone who they choose and someone who continues to fail us. And also, there's never any power given to the members of our community. And I don't care, even if they even if they put someone in a position of color, it's never someone who's looking to operate from a position that's going to benefit us or bring some power to our community. So we have to really change the dynamics with our vote if we want things to change collectively in our electoral process and in our political arena.
Yeah, Father, Julian brings up a good point. You know, a lot of people like to talk about the power of the vote. Our members of the African American community has voted for generations and for decades, but we still remain powerless under this particular system. So is it just a facade, this so-called democracy that we have in New York City? Like, where's the disconnect? You know, because African Americans in 2014 have more elected officials in the New York State Senate, New York State Assembly, in the City Council, you know, in local politics, but we still remain powerless. You know, our graduation rates is low, incarceration rates are high, police brutality is too high, unemployment, lack of black businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where's the disconnect if there's supposed to be power in the vote?
I think the disconnect basically boils down to money. The Supreme Court put the icing on the cake in Citizens United and following by McGregor decision in which every office from the White House down to the doghouse is for sale. And when you look at the so-called two choices between Slimy Andy and Soriano, they're both working for the same boss. Mm-hmm. The corporations, the billionaires and the millionaires who supply the money. You know, it was kind of easy for me because it looked as if Slimy Andy was going to win. But I said, no, I personally, although it's nobody's business, I voted for Hawkins on the Green Party. Mm-hmm. He was the only one who came with some kind of independence that you didn't find in any of the two. And as long as money is going to be the deciding factor, we're going to end up powerless. So I think Julian was really pointing out that the more of us get out and vote, even though it might seem futile at times, the more of us get out and vote, and then if we still can't, even though we're in the vast majority, I think then we have to disrupt.
Mm. Well, without a political education, it really doesn't matter how many of us come out and vote. It doesn't matter what our aspirations and goals are. If you lack true political education, then they will select who you're going to vote for. They'll select what the
Issues.
platform will be. And so to exercise the right to vote without knowing what the platform is and what your bosom interests really are in it are, and not having a political agenda, then you're playing with yourself. It's like playing Russian roulette. You have to become more sophisticated. Right here in New York, it really makes no sense to engage in this dialogue without an education, because here in New York, some of us want justice for Eric Garner and his family, and yet we put no demands on the present governor and the present attorney general. You need a political education, and trust me, if nothing else, you also need a critical analysis of the terrain. See, that's one thing I like about law enforcement. It teaches you to observe terrain. And if you miss that point, then you've missed your whole law enforcement career, because you should study terrain militarily and strategically, geopolitically. And if you do that, then you understand that how could you have Reverend Sharpton telling everybody that he wants federal intervention into Eric Garner, yet we have an attorney general that's a Democrat, we have a governor that's a Democrat, and you have Reverend Sharpton cascading all over the country, supposedly trying to get the Democrats out, but yet you didn't tell black people in particular to put pressure on the governor or the Attorney General Snyderman to make them have a special prosecutor in a case that's near and dear to our hearts. So I'm just saying, if we act without a political agenda, without a political education, it doesn't matter what numbers that come out, because as his father did, Mario Cuomo, if he gets more votes per precinct than the actual black elected official that votes there, then he has no respect for that person, because he outdrew them. And if he does that, as he told before when he said, I'm not going to do nothing for black people, and people were surprised, he said, I beat you in your own district. So he has no respect for black people. And if you vote for him without a demand, and as you're voting for Andrew Cuomo, he will respect you even less than his father did.
Father?
I think that's an extremely important point about the political agenda and education, because we get caught up in a whole lot of foolishness. You know, the folks who vote for a face, what color you are, or the votes voting for a gender. It's great to have a woman. And then you look at the witch of a Hillary, for example, who will simply advance the same kind of political international agenda as the last three administrations, including Obama. So if you don't know what you want, you don't know your agenda, and you're stupid enough to think I'm going to vote because, well, we want a woman or we want a black face, then you're going to get the results that we're getting.
And it's so important that, first of all, we need to understand what our concerns and issues are politically. And I concur with Mike wholeheartedly. It's really about a political education. We really need to know what our needs and our goals are politically and what our desires are. And we also have to look at history. You know, we have these elected officials who come out and periodically, and even, not even periodically, they constantly bombard us with this false information relative to how they're going to support the issues that concern us. But whenever they get in office, they fail. They fail to bring home the bacon. They fail to give us the things that we require to live a healthy, normal life in this particular society. And it's unfortunate that we continue to go back to the same practices, voting in the same people, and ending up with the same results. I think it's very important that we start paying attention to what's coming, not just out of the mouths of the people who are running for office, but what they're bringing to the table. And as they continue to fail us, we have to modify our way of thinking and the way that we vote, and ensure that we vote for people who are showing, not just talking, but showing that they are willing to lay it on the line to ensure that the things that are needed for our community are brought home to our community.
And one of the problems with that, because, you know, even though that's what everybody says is very instructive and should happen, the truth of the matter is individuals persistently placed before us to vote work for the machine, work for the Democrat or Republican Party, don't really have links to grassroots. And the Democratic Club basically hand selects the people that we wind up deciding what we're going to go with A for B. Julian, what you said is true. We should organize ourselves as communities and decide who do we want to be the city council person, the state assembly person. That doesn't happen. That's not happened. That hasn't happened. We attempted to happen at a number of times, especially as it relates to the Freedom Party. But the truth of the matter is the Democratic Party selects who's going to run in every district throughout the city. So we basically pick between a couple of choices that somebody else has already presented to us. Michael.
Well, the thing is, there's a few things we are bombarded with constantly. For one thing, we are always told that if we do not vote in a particular election, we are somehow betraying our ancestors, as if they fought the fight for freedom. The fight was somehow for a vote. The fight was for freedom and liberation. It had nothing to do with the vote. Now, obviously, we wanted to exercise the rights of voting and the like, but it had much more to do with freedom and justice. So now, in that process, when you have a situation where we are told that it's part of an historical legacy, then that's a problem. Now, the other part of it is, if you're black, once you get into office, you're basically in office for life. Unfortunately, incumbency is so overpowering that once they get in the club, they could care less about what's going on with black people, and these are black elected officials, selected officials. They could care less about what's going on in the black community. Their whole agenda is based on what white people tell them to do. And you have governors in the past or the present that will smack black elected officials if they don't go with the party line. They're also, like, as I've always pointed out, they're instruments within every party that will make them bend to the party line. So you have a situation where they never operate our agenda, and we wonder why, because we don't really make demands on black elected officials. Once they in, they basically in for life. We complain about Rangel having 40-something years, or we complain about whether it's Major Owens and Towns and all them guys once they got over 20 years in. But we have made no demands on no one, and they in turn don't do anything.
It's very interesting. I think what Julian said is true. The only thing is, I think politically it's going to have to be an independent political party.
Right.
Because we can't, de Blasio talked a good game prior to the election, and look what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody did a better talk than when Barack Obama was running for office. All the things that we wanted, Obama wanted. He was for it. He got into just the opposite, because he's owned by the same people who own Bush and who own the rest of them, the money people.
And one of the things I hope that I came across with when I was speaking, we have to develop. I'm not saying we just have to choose, because there's a difference between choosing a candidate and developing a candidate. And I think we have to develop our own candidate from a grassroots, from our own field of choice, as opposed to picking the best someone who's presented before us, or deciding out of a group of people. We need to groom, develop, grow, cultivate our own candidates to do the will of the people, because they have to have an innate desire to do what's right, to have integrity, and do the will of the people, as opposed to telling us that they're willing to do this. They have to be developed into that.
And just so, just so the hypocrisy, the so-called democracy, like how many elected officials really engage, not during election year, but, between those periods and voter registration drives? How many elected officials in our community really attempt to get people to register? I mean, you hear nothing about voter registration, but it's just a facade. They're happy with the few number of individuals that do vote because they have the support of the party, and the mere fact that we only have two parties, the Democrat and Republican Party in the country the size that we have, it just smacks of hypocrisy. It's a form of democracy, but it's really not a pure, true democracy. Well, we'll see.
I just want to give a different perspective. we don't have two parties, we have one party,
Right.
the rich. And then you have the Democratic side and the Republican
Right,
side.
right. All right, was spoken about earlier. Father Lucas mentioned Mayor Bill de Blasio, someone that many of our communities supported. He was actually running fourth when he ran in a mayoral campaign behind Christine Quinn, Weena, and Lou. But once he went public with his son and his beautiful afro and his beautiful African wife, he went up and opposed. A lot of people suspected that he would be more liberal, have a diverse administration that was more reflective of the city. But we see that's not happening. You know, he's 80 some odd, 85% of his commissioners are European, 100% of his law enforcement commissioners are European, and the police commissioner that he picked, Bratton, today, the last few months have gotten rid of the highest black and Latino chief in the department, Pinero and Chief Banks. Both of them have resigned. To those of us in law enforcement, we know there's a level of frustration in dealing with this individual who really didn't want them. But this is de Blasio's boy. They had a press conference that he articulated his support for Bratton. Julian, to many in the African American and Latino community, is problematic to see these two shining stars within law enforcement within 10 months resign abruptly. And just the mere fact that they left abruptly shows that it was, a level of frustration there. And this is Bill de Blasio, so-called progressive, so-called liberal, like Malcolm X said, so-called white man.
Well, one of the things I think we have to understand is that they are not going to allow, and I'm talking about the Bill de Blasios and the police commissioner Brattons, allow someone like a Philip Banks or Pinero really be in a position of power. Like you said, in law enforcement, we all understand that the first deputy commissioner, which they were attempting to say was going to be a bump or a promotion, is a position where all these guys deal with is disciplinary issues. They don't have any power to deal with any policy changes. They don't have any control over any uniform issues outside of the disciplinary area. And also, you have to leave the police department as a uniform member of the service and become a civilian member of the service once you become a commissioner. So, I understand Philip Banks, Chief Banks' position. I understand that he would not have really been in the mix, in dealing with policy issues in the police department. And I think that's intentional. I don't think that Bratton wanted him there. And Chief Banks had a relationship with the black community. He had a relationship with the overall community. And I think it was very important to have him in that position to deal with the issues that were malaffecting the community overall. So I think that was a bad move on the mayor and Bill Bratton to allow such an intelligent and a very concerned person when it comes to issues that affect the community overall. So I think that's going to be a major loss to the NYPD.
And Father, those of us who remember Bratton, remember that when he was the police commissioner in the 90s, Chief David Scott was the chief of the department, and he did the same thing to David Scott, moved him to first deputy position. Allegedly, some call it a promotion, but those of us in law enforcement, as Julian said, it's not a policy position, it's not really a promotion. Chief David Scott, who was just like Banks, well-respected African-American chief, resigned from the job about 8 months later. So this is repetitive with Bratton. He had a lot of problem with black chiefs. You remember Saunders?
Yes.
He was a very high chief. He put him on midnights, made him a shoot fly. He has a problem with African-American, strong African-American within law enforcement, and this extends to the 90s. But still, this is your mayor, your so-called progressive, with an African wife and African-looking children. This is the one that you love and you chose and you say is so progressive and so diverse, who picked this Bratton. And then even after the African-American community complained, he still locked arms and said, I 100% support my police commissioner, even though he done it again.
Well, I think, first of all, the press conference which Julian alluded to, that was just a farce. I love you, Bratton, and I love you, de Blasio. That's BS. But in the case of Pinero didn't resign abruptly. He was forced out.
Right.
And everybody saw
Right.
that coming.
Right.
And in the case of Phil Banks, who not only comes from the community, but his father was heavily involved in the community as well.
Yes.
And So, in the case of Bill Banks, while I respect him tremendously, even more now, because it was just ceremonial position
Right.
that Bratton was appointing him to.
But Bratton said it was a promotion.
Yeah, which was BS. Because he had no power anymore.
Right.
And some Negroes would be delighted to get that ceremonial position and the money that went with it.
That's right.
But Phil Banks said, no, I'm not here for decoration. And so he resigned abruptly. He wasn't forced out. He said, no, to hell with this crap. I don't need it. And but that shows you where Bratton's coming from, and it shows you where de Blasio is coming from, that he picked the clown in the first place.
Well, from the outset, let me first commend Noel Leader for the outstanding job that he did Sunday on the open line. We don't get on open line too often, and Noel took full advantage of the invite and showed, the skills that we've always known that he's had in 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. He showed true leadership, an extremely large information base relative to Bratton, relative to law enforcement, and gave the community, the Black community, penetrating insights as to those who might have been fooled that this was a promotion. And we have to commend Noel Leader for doing an outstanding job in elevating the consciousness of our community. Now, this is why we have to be careful when we say it was not a promotion without an explanation. So Noel was able to explain it because technically speaking, it is a promotion when you go from chief to first deputy commissioner because you're right next to Bratton. But that's all you are, right next to him. You're just sitting there like his secretary is sitting right near him. That's about it. The power of the police department is who controls patrol. And if you're the chief of the department, you control patrol and everything that's a part of patrol. You do not control any of those things once you're first deputy commissioner. So that's where the power truly lies. And Bratton knows that full well. Now, Bratton does not have a problem with Banks. Bratton does not have a problem with Pinero. Bratton undergirds white supremacy. So let's be clear on it. It's not a personality thing. It's not like he woke up one day and did not like Banks. He is a white supremacist of the highest order. And then just to shock some of you, so is de Blasio. They are both white supremacists. It's not a personal thing. It's white supremacy at its finest. When you have a situation where you can take the number one point man in the city, Reverend Sharpton, who whites have elevated to that position, and you give him his marching orders, that's why you can in turn do anything you want to do. You don't fear any retaliation from the Black community. Now, it's true that Banks did have some real relationships with the Black community because coming out of community affairs, he had spoke with people for such a long time there that he developed some real hooks in the Black community. But he had always had that wherever he was at anyway. So when you combine that with the one person who's undergirding white supremacy, you know full well that this person is a threat because in terms of law enforcement, he's just as good as you are or better. And he knows the community and people know him. Sometimes chiefs are invisible to the civilian community. However, Banks' name was out there and people knew who Banks was. Consequently, Banks, by subject of definition, had to go, and he executed that. And it's just political theater when you see the front of the Post saying, de Blasio's wife saying, "I told you not to trust him," meaning that they were betrayed by Bratton. If the mayor felt he was betrayed at all, Bratton serves at his pleasure,
That's right.
not vice versa. So that's just a political game for de Blasio to separate himself just in case some blacks are disturbed about what happened to Banks. He's saying, that's his way of saying, I don't have anything to do with it because now he's making his wife a spokesperson. I mean, come on, a wife now, please.
And Mike was right when he talked about the power in patrol. But it's not just patrol, it's enforcement, because he has control over all the enforcement. We're talking about the Detective Bureau, the Narcotics Bureau, we're talking about aviation, any unit you're talking about that's involved in enforcement. And the First Deputy Commissioner is really involved in discipline, which is really administration, which is a civilian position. So when we start talking about the power of dynamics in the police department, when you are in control and make decision and policy choices relative to the overall enforcement, that's what we're talking about.
Mike was right. The white supremacy is basically at the bottom of all of this. But there was somewhat of a difference between Pinheiro and Banks, because Bratton did have a personal thing against Pinheiro too. In regard to the so-called Post article, if you remember, that whole press conference was primarily to say the Post article was a complete fabrication, and de Blasio's wife never said that.
Right.
So who are you going to believe? I certainly ain't going to believe the Post, nor Bratton, nor de Blasio. It is very interesting, too. The same thing is going on in the correction department, but it's not getting the same play. What happened? They got rid of Clemens, who was the chief of the department.
Right, yeah.
They got rid of his underling, McLaughlin. And now what they're doing is bringing in some white dude from the outside who the chief of the department, and it's not the commissioner, the chief of the department will have to answer to. So it's taken away the power of the chief of the department right off and giving it to some dude who only God knows where he's from. Then my final point is, among the speculation, there's a lot of speculation that it's going to be either Doug Ziegler or Nelson. I forgot the Latinos, Soto maybe. But here again, you know, for those of us who came up with Doug Ziegler and know Doug is not going to raise any fire. You know, Nelson, unless he's changed, may have the balls to deal with, but I don't. But you know, only time will tell if it is Nelson.
Right. But you know, finally, of course, we come into the phone calls. We see we have a full listen. When Michael said that the police commissioner was a white supremacist, a lot of people always think of things like Ku Klux Klan. The foundation of white supremacy is that white people should be supreme in everything, in thought and concept and precepts and everything. It should be white. You know, just to reflect real quick, because we got to go to our phone calls. When I talked about him putting down Chief Scott and making him first deputy commissioner, it was without power.
Right.
When Chief Scott left, and Chief Timoney, white man, Irish, or that Irish clan, when he became first dep, Bratton gave him all the power. Even the chief of department had to respond to him. So now fast forward today, when he was said that he was going to appoint this to Chief Banks, he didn't give Chief Banks all the power that he gave Timoney.
Right.
You know, so when he said he was going to be so-called second in control, it's a facade, it's a lie. As Michael said, it's based on white supremacy. It's sort of like if I made you the guard, if I promoted you from chief to guard, ain't nothing higher than guard, but I made you guard of the broom closet. You know what I'm saying? So that's your limited authority. But anyways, Michael, do me a favor, just talk real quick about Detroit, because some of the same. Hold on, we're going to give you time to mention Detroit, because we really want to talk about what's going on in Detroit. First phone caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? All right, if we have problems with our phone, we can go to Detroit. First caller, you there?
That's it.
All right, there you go. There you go, caller, you're on the air. Welcome to Community Cop.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm calling from Rockaways, and I've agreed that we lack education. When Abraham, some of us believe that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, but when our forefathers assisted his manpower to win the Civil War, the Democrats saw something, and they said, okay, we're going to promise, the someone was coming along, so they told the Negroes, the blacks, that we're going to promise you 40 acres and a mule. Abraham Lincoln going to use our forefathers to help him assist in winning the Civil War. This is the march that I see today, because I never heard of Michael Steele until they needed someone to battle with Obama. And also, Democrats, that's what they still promise us today. This day, they're still promising us. And also, black and brown election officials, once they get in office, they forget about us, because, and I say that because it looks like Eric Adams and the likes of Letitia James, they get their marching orders from Marty Marker, which the only thing Marty Marker ever gave us was concerts in the summertime. And last but not least, de Blasio, he reminded me of the black man in Ken Norton's Mandingo, where he was just busting out black women, and he left his plantation with some blacks, with the woman, the black sister, but yet his still heart was in white people. He was only using the black woman for sex.
All right. Thank you for your call, brother. Thank you for your points. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Calling from Lower Manhattan.
Okay. Welcome.
I have a short sidebar unrelated to the issue right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Before the evening is over, I'm encouraging like-minded folks to go out there and vote today by putting Alton H. Maddox Jr.'s name down for governor as a write-in. We need to send a message to the politicians and to the state of New York that we have to get justice for the families of Ramali, Graham, Eric Adams, and the remaining all the other families. We have to end this endorsement in enforcement, that is, of Dred Scott, and to support the black equality agenda. So I'm encouraging folks to get out there. You're discouraged to what elections you have now. Just get out there tonight and write in Alton H. Maddox Jr. for the governor of New York State.
Okay.
And that will really turn things around if there are tens of thousands doing that tonight.
Okay, excellent point. Excellent point, brother. Thank you for your call. A lot of people don't know that they can write in the candidate they want if he's not on the ballot. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Mine Hotep, Brother Kareem from Harlem.
Hotep, brother.
Yes, sir, brother. Any black man or any black woman in America that votes for Como and Christie got to be out of their mind. These two races there was hate black people. And these house Negro politicians that ain't saying nothing about what's going on and how corrupt Como is, these niggas need to be wiped off the earth. Sharpton is a hypocrite, call himself the civil rights leader, but yet and still he don't do anything to represent that sister that got raped in his own organization. And my question to you, brothers, is do Obama and Holman really care about those disenfranchising of our people? Elijah Muhammad said, pick one of your own people who you believe in and run him to be a politician that represents your people, because that's the only one who's going to represent you and be who you're supposed to be, because white people hate you and that's our enemy.
All right.
Thank you, brother, for the time.
All right, thank you for your call, caller. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep, brother.
Hotep, where you calling from?
Calling from Harlem, brother. This is Brother Calvin.
Okay, Hotep, brother, quick question or comment?
Okay, it's a quick comment, man. I just want to say, man, we just got to realize, man, that we got fooled by the Afro with de Blasio, and I'm urging everybody, man, to come out Wednesday, man. We got to get Alton Maddox back in order, man. We got to, man. This brother was there. I mean, he's a phenomenal lawyer, man, and the next petition I'm going to do is for Alton Maddox. We got to get behind Brother Maddox, man, and get him back in power.
Okay, brother. But hold on a second, brother. Hold on, you there? You said something about Wednesday. What about Wednesday?
Yes, that's all I was telling brother. Come out Wednesday. I'm gonna start a petition job. We must get this brother back in order.
Wednesday, where's the date, time, location?
At the United African over there in Brooklyn.
1061 Atlantic Avenue.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get you to say, brother.
Okay, brother.
1061 Atlantic Avenue, what time?
7 o'clock between
o'clock.
Franklin and Clausen, and what the brother was talking about when he mentioned order. Ramsey Order wants Alton Maddox to be his attorney of record in the case. Now, I was there Friday, and they postponed it until December. Ramsey Order is the videographer who took the videotaped the incident of Eric Garner, and he wants and out of payback by the police department 1 day after the medical examiner ruled Eric Garner's death a homicide. They turned around and arrested Ramsey Order, claiming that he had a gun which was empty. Now, who's going to walk around with an empty 22?
A person who's been set up.
You know, so he wants Attorney Maddox to be his attorney and defend him. So that's what the caller is talking about. And so I was there Friday, and the next case will be in December, and hopefully by that time we'll have this mess cleared up, and he can establish his Sixth Amendment rights and have the person that he wants to defend him, which is Alton H. Maddox Jr.
And when I say a person that's set up, like if I'm going to, now I'm not saying this would happen, but if I was going to set somebody up with a gun and follow up and arrest them, I want that gun to be empty. I don't know that many people walking the streets. As the guns that I've taken off the streets, I've never arrested somebody with an empty gun. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop.
How many people carry a 22?
Yeah, next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Hello, caller.
This is Mia from Harlem.
Hotep, sister, quick question or comment?
Hi, listen, I just wanted to say I love you, brothers,
Love you
And
back.
I went out today to vote, and I hear what everybody's saying about go out and vote. But when you go out and vote, I went out and voted, and where I went for 18 years straight, my name was no longer on the list. I wanted to go to another location. Okay, and they do this to frustrate us, so we will give up and not vote.
Right.
But then when I got to my new destination, when I got there and I looked at the ballot, it was like no substance and no one to vote for. So you know what I did? I voted for who I wanted to vote for, and I left some things blank, and I voted Michael Graves for governor.
Thank you, sister.
I love you, brother.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, sister.
Thank you so much.
A lot of people don't know you can write in the person that you want.
There was nobody
you.
else on the ballot for Jelly Wrangle, and then Schneiderman.
Right.
It was great.
Thank you, sister.
All right,
Thank
next
you.
caller. Next caller. What kind of community cop? Where you calling from? Next caller, you on the air.
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller?
Oh, I'm calling from Manhattan.
Hotep, sister.
How you doing?
All right.
I do want you to know that I did write in Brother Alton Maddox for governor.
Good.
And I voted for Ramon Jimenez on the Green Party.
Okay.
And I want, we are talking, the community cop audience, we're talking to each other. We've got to get the message out.
Right.
And over the next 2 years, as I said on Open Line, we really have a decision to make, and we need to begin to educate our community as to what to do to make de Blasio a one-term mayor. So if we do nothing for the next 3 years, we got 3 years to do that, and we should be committed to doing that, making him a one-term mayor.
Sister, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Why do you think our so-called political leadership, our so-called religious leaders that allow these politicians to come to their church on Sunday, why so-called black leaders, why don't you think they come together to galvanize the black electorate in New York City? It's like everybody do their own thing, and we have, in a city that's majority black and Latino, we have no political power, really.
Well,
No.
this is white minority rule, but you know what?
Right.
I tell everybody, everybody's got a price. Hello?
Yeah, we listen.
Everybody's got a price, and they are more than willing and ready. They got the coffers to pay the price, and anybody who's got a price, if they pay the price, they get over. So we can't focus on what they do. We got to focus on what we
Right.
do.
All right, sister. Excellent response. Thank
The
you.
other side of the coin of de Blasio one-term mayor is we should be developing a
Right.
candidate right now.
Right.
Or we're going to put.
Exactly. All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hey, so I'm calling from Far Rockaway.
Okay, Hotep.
Yeah, Hotep. I just wanted to comment, because I've been thinking about it a while. But you're right. We need to develop our own communication and start developing our homegrown representatives themselves, and start now. Get ready for the next mayoral election and get ready for the next presidential vote. We should start now. Our own reps. That's all. I just want to concur with that.
Okay, and but let's start a trend here on Community Cop. Before we say Mayor de Blasio, let's call him one-term de Blasio. Let's no longer say de Blasio. Let's say one-term de Blasio. That's his name from now on. One-term de Blasio.
I don't care, but let's get on our wagon. Get moving.
Yes, sir, brother. All right, thank you for your call, brother. Now, Michael, we're going to digress a little bit. In Detroit, a city that's having a whole lot of problems, even a whole lot of brothers and sisters that live in Detroit, getting their waters are turned off. It was their city was taken over by an emergency administrator. What's going on down there?
Well, they're foreclosing. They believe by this time next year, over 30,000 people will have been foreclosed on.
Wow. And it's a majority black city now.
It's 85% black.
Right.
It's 85% black. They're cutting off people's water, 300-400 a day. And yet the corporations that owe back money, they're not cutting off their water. So, you have a situation where Snyder, the Governor Snyder, has in turn taken over these cities, various cities, Pontiac, Flint, Benton Harbor, Detroit. He's taken over these cities and in turn has created a situation where they can no longer govern themselves. And so he's having his emergency manager sell off parking lots, sell off tunnels, the tunnel that goes straight to Canada, which gross a lot of money, all the parking meters of key land, buildings, all those will be sold. And when hundreds of people are being forfeited on daily, those houses are being put into a pool, and big developers are bidding for those pools. They put up a bid for over 6,000 houses, $3 million. So it comes out to $500-600 a house. These millionaires are going to clean up and become billionaires.
It's a land
just
grab.
It's a land grab,
Yeah.
and that's what's going on in Detroit as we speak.
It's not just Detroit, it's the whole county.
Right.
What's happening there, of course, is the attempt to privatize water and privatize
Yes,
everything else.
That's right.
You know, half my family comes from there. My brother was county executive there and sheriff there for a long time. Half my family's there. And at the time when he was county executive, this thing was coming up, and that's when they got angry when we began to protest even then. So this is not something that's just happening. This was planned for.
Right.
Well, like I said, it's not just Detroit. It's
Yeah.
Pontiac, Flint,
Yeah.
Benton Harbor, all these places that are black. They're taking over. This is
Brooklyn, Harlem.
Well, look, white minority rule is on the attack, and if you don't hear it here, where you going to hear it? This is white supremacy at its finest. This is ethnic cleansing, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call
Right.
it. It's what's going on now, and they are systematically removing black communities that are historically black, that have been for at least the last 100 years black. They're systematically removing them, and they don't care where they end up. So you see small incursions, whether it's Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, Brownsville, East New York. You see these things going on in the South Bronx. These things are going on all over the place, and this is what's happening nationwide. It's not only in small black cities. It's going on all over the country.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hi, hello. I'm calling from Brooklyn,
Hotep. All right, thank you, Brooklyn.
and just a comment. I'm a former New York City transit worker,
Okay.
and I remember when Bratton came and took over the New York City Transit Police Department,
Right.
and he's doing the same thing here that he did at the New York City Transit
That's
Police
right.
Department. Okay, and when I had heard he was taking over, I said, oh boy, here we go again. And everybody thought he was the greatest. No, he's not. He wasn't great at New York City Transit, and he's not going to be great here. So I just want people to wait and see.
All right.
Okay, have a good
All
one.
right, thank you, sister, for your call.
Didn't mention
You're welcome.
L.A. Dorner mentioned him in his I forgot what he called that expose he did. Christopher Dorner, the black police officer that they hunted down
Right.
like a dog.
And murdered.
He mentioned the racism of Bratton and others. So and
Was it
you're right.
manifesto?
They
Right.
murdered manifesto.
Right.
That's the term he used. His manifesto. He mentioned Bratton several times.
And everybody didn't think Bratton was so great. Remember, at that time, transit police was independent of NYPD.
Right.
And the great thing that Bratton did for the transit police was to give them the 9mm.
Right.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello,
Hotep. Where you calling from, sister?
I'm calling from Washington Heights.
Okay, Hotep.
Well, I'm surprised that you gave such a talk today encouraging people to vote, but you just vote just in honor of all the people that died, making it possible for other people to vote that didn't live in New York and other places, like the three civil rights workers, Medgar Edwards, Martin Luther King Jr., to name just a few, Fannie Lou Hamer and all those other folks. We owe them that to get out and vote whatever choices we have to pick from.
So should we vote for this governor? Should we vote for this governor who's not giving justice in Staten Island?
Go vote, vote, vote.
Right. And even right.
Home and say, what's the use? We can't change anything.
We
Okay.
still need a political education system.
Right,
but
okay.
I agree with you.
And sister, we believe that if you don't like somebody that's on the ballot, you should write in the name.
Fine, I'll do that.
Right.
I'll write your name in, okay?
Okay, sister. Bless you. But okay, sister. Thank you for your call.
Fine.
All right, peace. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Next caller. Caller, you on the air? Hello?
It's a child.
Okay. All right, we have to scrap that. They can't hear us, or we can't hear them. Okay. All right. So we lost two calls. Call back those calls that were just on the line. Went from number to 0. I made a statement. No, Julian, you wanted to say something a little earlier.
No, it was on just the issues, because Michael said it. The issue we're talking about is a nationwide, global issue. I mean, our people are really being removed from positions that will give them wealth and power. And we really have to pay attention to how the dynamic is being not even, I was going to say change, but how it's being taken away from us and how we're being robbed of it. So we really have to operate from a position of black nationalism, and we have to develop and control our economies, our education, and every system that affects us as a collective.
Right. And I made a statement earlier, Father, and don't lose your point, that about the Klan. Now, all Klansmen are white supremacists, but I just want our community to understand that all white supremacists don't wear hoods. You know, some of them wear blue suits, some of them wear blue uniforms, some of them wear black robes, some of them have black wives and
Explain
sons.
what black robes are.
Oh, you mean the judge?
Judges.
Judges.
So get
Judges.
right.
Some of them have African American wives and African American sons that wear afros. You know, so don't just think of white supremacist as somebody who wears a Ku Klux Klan uniform. You know, but go ahead, Father. I know there got to be some white supremacists that got African American wives and some with afros.
But you know what? And I'm going to let Father Sue Lucas, I'm sorry, but I don't know if people really understand when you say white supremacy, and I think you said it earlier, it's just that white people should be in control. They are supreme. They should be in charge.
And they believe in tenets that other ethnic groups should be insubordinate to them, that they should be in power.
Right.
And they don't share power. It's not on talent. It's not who's most qualified, who's right. That's what white supremacists, that's one of the philosophy, and white supremacy is the greatest form of injustice on the planet, and it's throughout the planet, you know, because Europeans have invaded other countries and infected them individuals, whether it be India and China and other foreign lands, with this tenet of white supremacy. Go ahead, Father, before anybody else cuts you off.
And the parameter that Michael outlined is very interesting, which proves the point. Dearborn is in that parameter. Nobody's touching Dearborn. It's high middle class white folks.
Wow.
And just remember that when you look at white supremacy, what Noel pointed out about black robes, he's not just that's not hyperbole. The fact is, they are judges that exercise white supremacy. They might not be card-carrying members of the Ku Klux Klan or the White Citizens Council. However, they do their due diligence in their own way. And you have to remember that during the Civil Rights Movement, they estimated that half of all police officers in the entire South were members of the Ku Klux Klan back then during the civil rights days of the 60s, the 50s and the 60s. They estimated that half of sheriffs, half of police officers in places like upstate New York, they said half of them were members of the Ku Klux Klan.
And when we talk about white supremacy as it relates to our one-term mayor, Bill de Blasio, you know, we pointed out his administration is the commissioners, those individuals in power, are majority white. And a lot of people were fooled to think that this is an individual that believes in diversity. You know, when he goes to his breakfast table at home, he has a diverse breakfast table. But in terms of his appointment, who he wants in control, whites.
Right. And Emmett Till, when Emmett Till was killed, the governor of Mississippi came into the courtroom, came and sat next to the two defendants that killed Emmett Till, shook his hand, sat down next to him. Now, what do you expect an all-right jury to do in Mississippi once the governor shakes the hand of the people that killed Emmett Till and he sits down next to them? What is he telling that jury?
You know, there's not a black in a policy-making position. And that's the important thing, policy-making position in de Blasio's administration.
And then when you look at the budgets, you know, who controls the money? And that's what, you know, Charles Barron, to his credit, that's what he always said when he talked about the racism in politics. He said the racism is in the budgets. Whites want the New York State, the control of the New York State budget, which is the third highest budget in the country, and whites want the New York City budget, which is the fourth highest budget. We have the fourth highest budget in the country, and that's where the white supremacy is. They want to chop up that, and they don't believe in sharing that. They don't believe in diversity, and they don't want you in a powerful position because you might spend money with yourself and become rich and independent, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I think our time is running out. Julian.
You know,
Closing comments.
I think Father Lucas made an excellent point. When we talk about how monies are dispersed in the city and who's getting rich and how politics plays a role in that, we really need to pay attention and we really have to change the dynamic. I concur with that caller, go out and vote, but you have to vote your conscience and you have to vote what's going to benefit you as a group and as an individual. Dad, I love you. Karen, my love goes out to you, the Leader family, the Harper family. Big Mike.
Just for the record, let's be clear that among all the things that we do, let's get a political education. Malcolm said it best when he said, history best rewards those who do the research. So I think that we clearly need to have a political education and critical analysis of what we're up against. Mr. Harper, Sister Karen, stay in God's and change your hand, reinstate Alton Maddox.
You know, de Blasio made a big spiel during the campaign about charter schools. Right now, you could see he's bending over the other direction. And all charter schoolers, you know, you could get a bunch of Negro parents who you fool and make them think that they are providing a better education for their children. And all what they're doing is knocking down the vast majority of black and Latinos who are in the public school system, who are being privatized, and the charter schools simply making money again for rich white folks.
All right. Once again, we'd like to thank you for watching. Thank you for our producers, Sheila Berry, Veronica Kidd, Nat Woods, Nolan Toppin, and our sister, whose mother's under the weather. So as we send our prayers out to the Leader family and Harper family, we also remember our sister. What's her name? Sierra, who's in the room, engineer room too. Thank you for calling. Thank you for watching. Next Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Knowledge is power. And as Julian said, we need a political education. It means more than you have the right to vote, but we have to really learn how do we vote, who are we voting for, why should we vote, what did the person that we vote for, what should they do, what responsibility should they have. See you next Tuesday.